Okay, so we are at test 1N, exercise 1. For 10 years now, which means this is some span of time, and usually with these sort of time periods, which started in the past and continue until now, usually we want to use present perfect continuous. How long have you been doing something? I have been learning English for 10 years now. Usually when we talk how long we've been doing something, we want to use present perfect continuous, just like here. Point 2. She is a driving instructor. She people how to drive. Now, since we are describing somebody's profession, we want to use present simple. So she teaches people how to drive. That's what she regularly, periodically does. Point 3. This place looks like a bomb site. What? Well, we have a consequence here, and when we talk about consequences, which of actions that have recently stopped or are still continuing, usually we want to use present perfect continuous, right? With the I've mentioned that many times, especially with the smoking example, right? So have you been smoking here? When we enter a room and we see smoke or smell smoke, we can say, have you been smoking here? Because we have some consequence. And here the place looks very bad, so we say, what have you been doing, to indicate or to ask about the consequences of somebody's actions. Point 4. While I was walking, it started to rain. Here we have a longer action and a shorter action. So when a longer action is kind of stopped, or sometimes it's stopped, or sometimes the shorter action simply happens in the middle of the longer action. In such context, we want to use past simple and past continuous. Here we have past continuous first and past simple in the second part. So it started to rain. Shorter action, I was walking, is the longer action. Point number 5. He doesn't know how to light the fire. He burned himself. So he doesn't know how to light the fire. He burned himself. Well, we are observing an action and we have some indication that something is going to happen because it's we have some indication here, right? So just like with the case with the clouds, when we see dark clouds, we say it's going to rain because we know that something is going to happen. Here we predict that he's going to burn himself because he doesn't know how to light a fire. Okay, well, maybe present perfect fits here, but like he's burned himself because he doesn't know how to light a fire. Might work, I think, but he's going to will kind of emphasize that we have a indication that something is going to happen because of something else, right? So point 6. Before we moved to England, we in France for 10 years. Okay, so here before we moved to England is in past simple. So let me take out my wonderful painting device and let's think about it. So here is we moved to England, that's past simple, and we are talking about the period even before that past event. So when we talk about something that happened or had happened before, we want to use, or had been happening here in this case, because that thing had been lasting for some time, that period of time. So we say we had been living, because it's even earlier than past simple and it had been happening for some time. So before we moved to England, we had been living in France for 10 years. By the end of January 2017, he half of his prison sentence. Okay, so in this case we have a different situation. We have time axis. This is future, right? So this is an event in the future. This is now, and we say that by some point in the future something will have happened because it's going to finish in the future. When we talk about actions that will finish in the future, we want to say something will have been done or somebody will have done something. So it's future perfect. So By the end of January 2017, he will have finished half of his prison sentence. You heard what the captain said. And this is not reported speech, by the way. This is just regular active voice because we have quotation marks here. Yeah. So we are going to say what you heard what the captain said. We will be landing in a minute. Yeah, because in a minute they will be in the middle of doing something. So in a minute we will be doing something. We will be performing an action. We will be in the middle of doing something. I think if you say we are landing in a minute, it's also okay. So we are landing in a minute, that should be okay, or we will be landing in a minute. I think this future tense, like many cases, it allows for other forms. I think we are going to land in a minute is also okay because that means something is going to happen and it's a prearranged thing. Yeah. So, and there are many sailors on the ship that are preparing this. So this is like a social kind of arrangement. They have arranged for them to land in a minute. So I would allow multiple options here, especially this a future tense. With future tenses, there's usually a few options to pick from. That's why they're so tricky. As soon as he, in London, he will call us. Okay, as soon as is one of those temporal clauses like before, after, until, till, the moment. And this is one of those when, yeah, before, after. So this is one of those, and they require present simple or present perfect, usually present simple. So as soon as he arrives in London, he will call us. And the final one, Egyptians. Well, that's an easy one. It refers to a historical completed action. So his Egyptians built the pyramids. Fantastic. So nice little exercise regarding English tenses. Hopefully you managed to do a lot of answers correctly. If not, don't worry, you'll learn soon. We'll do a lot of these tests. We'll move to second exercise in a second. Okay.